Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of In the Studio with me, Donny Carr. So today I wanted to show you how to mix kick and bass. I just have a basic kick loop and a bass loop pulled up that kind of sounded okay together, and we're going to mix them together. Now I just want to, before we do that, just make one thing clear. This isn't a tutorial about processing the kick and the bass to sound, to enhance them, to make them sound better. This is just a tutorial on how to mix them. And there's definitely a couple things to think about before you start mixing your kick and your bass together. First thing is, which one do you want to be the dominant force down low? You want the kick or the bass to be, because you can't have both. Unless they're not playing at the same time, then go for it. In most cases, I prefer to have my kick be the driving force and the bottom end, and have the bass support it and kind of dancing around it, and have the kick be the one constant. There are some tracks though that have just a massive bass and a higher pitched kick, and it works in those cases, and it's definitely not the case for all tracks. But today I'm going to show you one way, to mix kick and bass with only 2 plugins, and both FL Studio native. So here we go. Let's just play the kick and the bass loop together. It's just, yeah, cool little kind of plucky, almost mogy sounding bass loop here. It's a little bit loud, so first things first, let's turn it down a little bit. Alright, that's better. Now, since we have already made the decision to let the kick, be the driving force down low, let's take a little bit of low frequencies out of the bass. So let's do a high pass. I want to do a little bit of a resonance boost though, right at the cutoff point. That's good for now. Yeah, about there. And we're going to start extreme, and we'll dial it back till it sounds good. Around 40, 45, 40, 46, 47, that's where it sounds good. So we'll just leave it, it's at 47. Great. Okay. And I like the high end, kind of bite to this bass, but in this case, I just want to pull it down and low pass it a little bit more. And the reason I want to do that is I want to have another layer sitting on top of that sub bass that you can process different, and that's useful as well if you don't do that already. It's definitely handy to have a lower, more subby bass that really just supports the kick, and then have something sitting on top of that you can maybe widen out the top frequencies of that top bass. But I would say anything below 250, 300-ish, you want mono, especially if you are making club music, and that's what I'm making. So That's the deal. So yeah, I think that EQ is working nicely. Let's you can see here in the waveform that there is a little bit of action. There is a little bit of a transient here that's playing with the kick drum. So let's just do a little sidechain compression to make it just a little extra room for the kick. Let the kick, you know, be that driving dominant force. So now you can obviously just sidechain the kick, which is on channel 12 here, to the bass. But I prefer to have a sidechain trigger set up, and you could do this in MIDI. I just have this set up in audio right here, and it's just a kick sample that's shortened a little bit. And that way, the benefit of that is if you have a breakdown and you still want the pumping effect, you can still have the sidechain trigger going without having the kick if you want to pull the kick out for the break. You can also shorten the sample like I've done here to make it so the trigger is shorter, it's not longer. You just have a little bit more control over how you set up your sidechain if you do it this way. There's also plugins like LFO Tool for FL Studio. You can use Gross Beat, you can use Fruity Balance and automate just, you know, in the playlist here, your automation curve. You can do that. There's a million ways to do it, but I'm just going to show you kind of a more old school method today. So what we want to do is I have the sidechain trigger already in the mixer, so we'll take it here and we'll sidechain it to the bass. So right click on the bass, sidechain to this track, and it's there. Now on the bass, we need to pull up a compressor that allows a sidechain input. We're going to use Fruity Limiter / compressor / gate. I love this plugin. So on the sidechain box, let's right click, sidechain trigger, boom, ready to go. Now when we're setting this up, let's think. We want the attack to be immediate. As soon as the kick plays, we want it to duck. So let's leave the attack at 0. We want a fairly, not over the top ratio, but we want it to duck at a fairly significant ratio. 4:1 is good. 4:1 should work. So let's do that. Let's just dial back the threshold till we get some nice compression, and then we can play with the release time. Here we go. The Fruity Limiter is nice because you can really, it's really visual, and you could resize it even too. The purple is the compressed signal. That's what you're taking away from the original signal with compression. So it kind of gives you a little bit of visual feedback, but you definitely want to listen more than you want to look. It's just handy to kind of see what the plugin's actually doing. That's sounding nice. Now let's dial back the release, and if you don't know what the release is, it is as soon as the compression takes place, it's how long does it take for it to get back to its original signal. And that's done with the release knob. So the faster the release time, as soon as the compression takes place, it's going to be a more, it's going to go back to the original volume quick. And if you turn it down really low, you might get a little distortion in there, but sometimes that can sound good. And a longer release time, it's obviously going to be more of a smoother transition back up to the original volume. like it there, around 25. If it sounds good, leave it and move on. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't even do anything with the kick. I mean, this isn't a, like I said, this isn't how to process your kick or your bass. It's how to mix them together. It was more about mixing the bass with the kick, since the kick is the constant of the track. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment or a question below. I definitely welcome them. And I'll most definitely get into you know, how I process my kick and my bass. That'll be a fun tutorial for the future. But until then, I will see you next time. I'll see you definitely in the next day or two. So take care. Bye bye.